Welcome to the Woman's Current. Is the Tide Turning? I'm Sylvia Beckerman.
And I'm Molly Wadzik. Together we're exploring how women support women across generations, experiences, and perspectives.
From baby boomers to millennials and beyond, we're asking, are we lifting each other up? And how do we keep the tide moving forward?
Each week, we'll dive into real conversations with women who are reshaping the current and reflect on what those stories mean for all of us.
So let's dive in. Let's get started.
I am hopeful that hunger turns into like this knowledge that they have the ability to make an impact every step of the way. No matter how old they are, their voice matters. They don't have to wait till they can vote. They don't have to wait till they're, president of Pepsi. Their voice matters now.
Welcome to the Woman's Current. Is the Tide Turning? I'm Sylvia Beckerman. Today's conversation brings an intergenerational look at leadership and how women are helping the next generation rise. I'm joined by Amanda Cordano, Executive Director of Ms. President US, and Sofia Sahai, a high school student who founded the organization's New York City chapter. Together, we'll talk about how confidence, mentorship, and visibility can shape girls into future leaders. And what happens when women and girls lead side by side? Because the tide is turning and it starts early. Let's dive right in. Amanda, Sofia, I am so grateful that you gals are here. I can't believe this guy slings. So welcome to the Woman's Current.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah.
We're going to start off by looking at kind of the beginnings. Amanda, what inspired the creation of Ms. President US, and what gap did you see that no one else was filling?
Well, the founder, Liz Osterhus, had an 8-year-old daughter the night of the election in 2016, and she basically wanted to stay up all night and see the first female president get elected. And her mom at 10 p.m. said, I'll wake you up if history's made, but otherwise I'll see you in the morning. And put her daughter to bed. And when she realized history was not made in the way that she would have liked, she said, what is going to happen to my daughter at 8 years old when she's seeing this? She was obviously disappointed not to be the first see the first female president get elected. But she also, the 8-year-old, said, well, then I'm going to be the first female president. Actually, I think Sofia is probably going to be the first female president.
We're all for that.
And so she actually was working full time, but she developed this program as a stopgap because she felt like the next 4 years might not be great. She had studied psychology in college, and she knew that girls' self-esteem dips at age 9. So that was right around the corner for her daughter. And she didn't want the double whammy. So she developed this program, and it really is sort of simple but powerful to inspire and prepare girls to envision themselves as future leaders, which they do, maybe even president one day, Sofia. And we work with girls in 4th to 8th grade. We're helping them discover their voice, understand how government works, which is tricky for all of us. It's great to start that young. And helping them discover their voice and understanding kind of how government works, how leadership works, and how it's not about waiting for permission, how it's about stepping up for your community.
Sofia, you've taken this program and built a new chapter while still in high school. What made you decide to lead?
So I heard about Miss President in the spring of my sophomore year, and I heard it because my mom actually had met Amanda and heard all about the program. And I had always been interested in civics. My origin of civics also started in the 2016 election when I was 8 years old, and I phone banked all night with my mom. We were phone banking to voters in Arizona and New Mexico, and really that night I felt how powerful our voices could be, even though I didn't even have a vote. And I became really interested in politics and girls in politics specifically, and always wanted a space where I felt like I belonged in terms of on the political stage. So when I heard about Miss President, I really resonated with its mission of empowering girls in grades 4 through 8 and really making sure that they are empowered to step into any leadership position they want to be in. Because I think after that loss that night, I felt like a little discouraged that there wasn't a lot of space for girls in politics. And even at 8 years old, I felt that sort of weight and that like I was super emotional about it. And I can't even, articulate why still, but I know I was and I know I cared about it. And so when I heard about Miss President, I was like, wow, this is such an amazing program. I would have loved this at, 9 years old when I was just kind of coming into my own and learning what it means to be a leader. Um, and I heard that it only started in Connecticut and has a chapter in Ohio, and I live in New York City. And I was like, it would be such an incredible opportunity to bring this program to the girls of New York City. So I reached out to Amanda and talked to her about it. That summer, we got going, and with her support, I kind of worked on outreach and curriculum and really started the program in New York City in the fall of my junior year. So that was kind of the origins of why I wanted to start Miss President New York City, and it's really grown since then, and I'm so grateful for it.
Well, to me, kudos to you to realizing that you had a voice. You might not have
Definitely.
been able to vote, but even as older women, we don't always realize that we have a voice and we don't know how to use it. So for you to have realized or wanted to use your voice and use it in a way that is inspiring and educational, and looking to people who are in different generations to move that along and help you realize things that an 8 or 9 year old unfortunately doesn't even imagine.
Yes, it's been amazing. Thank you.
It's amazing that you were phone baking at 8. I'm going to
I
say that.
know, it's kind of crazy. Whenever I tell the story, everyone's like, "What? You were doing that when you were that young?" And I just remember sitting on my mom's lap and her
Yes.
teaching me how to dial the numbers and, just wanting to get as many people to the polls as possible. And
Yeah.
everyone was always kind of taken aback when they heard my sweet little voice on the end of the line, but it was
I would
super
have
fun
loved
for
that
me.
call. That would have gotten me off the couch for sure.
Well, when you look at the leadership landscape for women and girls today, where do you think the disconnect still exists between generations? Amanda?
I'm not sure because I'm a little bit of a Pollyanna and I'm always going to look for the positive. So I feel like if there's a disconnect, it's young girls not knowing they have the permission to look up and reach out. And that is on older people, women in leadership to remember to always be looking back and saying, who's next? Who's next?
Well, it's also for the older generation to realize that they have permission to do that. Permission is such a powerful word if people use it properly, if they understand how to use it. And I think that's key to what you are doing, to what you are teaching young girls, because hopefully from there it spreads out to other generations, older generations, that we have permission to use our voice. We have a voice. These stories need to be told because in telling them, we have so much in common. We're not all alike, but we have so much in common. There are so many points that we can talk about and discuss. And so, Sophia, do younger girls today feel more empowered to speak up or just more pressured to have it all figured out?
I think a little bit of a mix of both, just kind of adding to what Amanda said. I think representation is so important, especially in politics, and what speaking to the kind of disconnect, it's really hard for a lot of young girls to envision themselves as the leaders they once dreamed of being when they don't see that sort of leadership in politics or in finance or whatever field they want to go into. So I think that is both discouraging, but it also lights a little fire. Like girls want to, or at least I, speaking from my experience, having that made me want to speak up and use my voice. And I think in Miss President, that's what we're trying to foster is like, there's always a seat for you at the table and, you should feel empowered to use your voice. But at the same time, it is a little bit of that, it's a little scary to have that sort of pressure. Like, I don't see girls like me in the sphere I want to go into, should I just stay quiet or should I use my voice? And I think finding that balance is really hard for a lot of young girls these days.
Do you find that social media hinders that or helps that?
Also, I think a little bit of both because social media allows for a sort of community that maybe you wouldn't get in person. Allows for a lot of people to connect with people that they wouldn't have connected with otherwise. Like if it allows a movement to spread really fast because you can kind of just have this whole separate world in the online sphere and be able to connect with people from all across the world. But at the same time, it's super hard. It's super easy to hide behind a screen and to get lost in all the chatter online. So I think a little bit of both with that too.
Amanda, how do you see mentorship evolving? Are the models that work for us still relevant for Gen Z, younger, other generation? I mean, between baby boomers, millennials, Gen Zs, and I don't know.
I think that anytime you have intergenerational groups together, and especially women, there's going to be collaboration, there's going to be humor, there's going to be connection, and mentorship is a natural flow from that. So I think that it doesn't matter what generation you are, that the mentorship capacity is built in. It's confidence, it's empathy, it's leading with authority, it's seeing that and encouraging that. And I don't know that there's a difference between the generations or over the years, but that's, you know, it's building the bridge between what feels possible and what's actually happening. And I think social media, by the way, I feel like it's made some parts of politics much more accessible because we're able to see inside the halls of Congress when you've got, a rep that's walking through telling you what's happening and why. You feel like, oh, it's an immediate connection. And so although you do have the downsides of social media, which is a lot of pressure on young girls and women to look a certain way or to be a certain way, the upside is you're also getting access to a lot of people in a lot of places if you're interested in that.
Sophia, how do you see it? Because you're now, the program is fourth to eighth grade, and you're a junior. So, how are you seeing your role in mentoring some of the younger girls coming into young adulthood, a young womanhood?
Mentorship has been such a big part of Miss President in these last 2 years. And I think it's a really important way for the younger girls to be able to look up to older girls and really come out of their shell. Because what I've noticed in these last few years is that there's such a special bond between mentors and mentees. And the mentors really allow the mentees to kind of come into their own and encourage them to speak up when there's a guest speaker. They help them when there's an activity they're confused about. But also the mentors learn from the mentees themselves. The mentees bring so many wonderful ideas to the table. And I think having that sort of alliance between high school and middle school girls and that connection to, feel comfortable with each other is really important in making the program feel, safe and welcoming for all girls. And really let them know that there is a place for them in Miss President. And no matter who you are, if you're the shyest girl in the room or if you're the first one to raise your hand, you always have that sort of support from the older girls. And the goal is really to get all the girls to a comfortable place where they're all, willing and able to, share their ideas with the group and feel comfortable in the setting that they're in. So I think that the bond between older girls and younger girls has been really special. And I've even, as a senior now, I started the first year of the program as a junior. I've seen even in these last 2 years, girls move up from being mentees to mentors and going from 8th grade to 9th grade and taking on that sort of different role in the program, which I also think is a super cool way that Miss President functions. Is it's self-sustainable and the girls can move through the program from 4th grade all the way to senior year.
Amanda, tell me, I mean, how'd you find this young lady?
It's funny, the way our program has grown has really been very organic in nature, where it's been somebody who's had a daughter in the program who said, I don't want to drive 45 minutes. This is our Greater New Haven chapter. When her daughter was in 4th grade, she would drive her 45 minutes or an hour to come to our program in Ridgefield. And after 2 years, she said, do you think I could start a program? And I was like, absolutely. So she's running that. Her daughter now is running it. Is like a Sophia. She is a junior at Choate Rosemary Hall, and she runs the chapter for the Greater New Haven area. We had a family that lived here and was part of the original, let's say the original class, like the first year that the program happened. It started in 2018, and the girls kind of graduated the first year in 2019 or 2018. And they moved after the pandemic to Old Saybrook, and both their daughters were like, wait, we still want to do this. So their mom, started the chapter, and within, 4 or 5 years, when her daughters were in high school, the daughters are running the chapter. So it really has been so wonderful to see. Some of the chapters are parent led, a mom of somebody in the chapter. Some of them are high school led. Some of them, this summer we did our first sort of summer session, a week long sort of boot camp. And that was led by a state rep, and in combination with so she's a Democrat. We keep everything, bipartisan or nonpartisan. So she was a Democratic state rep in Middletown, and she teamed up with a Republican elected official. I think she was on the zoning board of appeals or something, and they ran the program together, and they had such a great time with the girls. They've already booked the space for next year. They are also a new model. So if we've got Sophia, who is rocking it, starting a new chapter in New York City as a sophomore, we're growing in ways that fit each of the communities when somebody expresses interest. We're open arms for anybody who wants the programming.
That's so important, because you're talking, you have New York City, you have Ridgefield, you have New Haven. Did you say Ohio? I mean, it's all different communities, different people, different backgrounds. And so it's not what people think that, most places are, and that's, I don't know what you want to call it anymore, but it's a variety, it's a mix, it's voices from all over, varied, which I think is huge and so meaningful in today's day and age. Totally. Even more so than it was back in, when you started back in 2018. It just becomes more and more important
Yeah.
and
So
more
it's funny.
critical.
The fire was lit election of 2016, and then it took Liz until 2017, because the election was November.
Right.
2017, the fall of 2017, the first official Ridgefield class started, and they graduated in 2018. And so, it's a pretty, Sophia, you'll attest, it's a pretty serious program. It's over 6 months.
really
It's
is.
once a month for an hour and a half. The mentors really run a lot of the programming. Sophia, you do so much in terms of identifying great speakers to bring in, great activities to do, ways to engage the girls. It's really powerful to see from the outside. I feel like all of these chapters. We also have a Lower Fairfield County chapter that has girls from, 11 different towns in Lower Fairfield County. You're like a dandelion, and you're just like with all this knowledge and all these connections, and all these girls are getting fired up at such a young age to know that they can make an impact. It just is a beautiful thing to see.
Yeah, it really is. And I think there's been, Amanda and I have worked together really closely because there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes. We bring in a new female guest speaker for every session. We plan programming, which is actually kind of nice because all of the chapters connect in a way. So we can work together and make sure we have programming that, fits each chapter and fits each town, but is also kind of connected. And we plan activities, do all the recruiting, but seeing how that has impacted the girls has been so special. I was at my school's homecoming yesterday, and there's a younger 7th grade girl from my school who is in Miss President. And I saw her mom there, and she gave me a big hug and came up to me and was like, my daughter really says she that you are her biggest role model, and she loves Miss President so much, and it's become her safe space. And just hearing that, from a mom was so special. It was really heartwarming, and just makes us so happy that we're able to create a community of girls from all across the city who really find their place in Miss President and kind of come into their own there and learn who they are and what they want to be. Because even though it's a civic program, it's really motivating girls to be leaders in any field they want to be in, and learning that they, can use their voices and should seek out opportunities. And it was really sweet to hear that. And
And
just,
that's one of the things that I picked up um, when you said politics, finance, and that's the whole thing. It's leadership. It's being able to use your voice. It's being a leader in whatever you want to do. It doesn't just have to be politics. It's the self-esteem that you give these young women in giving them permission to think about what they want to do, who they want to be, and the fact that their voices should be heard. And to be able to mix that and hear that and give them that platform is huge. Absolutely huge. Um, so I wanted to ask you, what do you think helps your generation of girls stay confident, and what gets in the way?
I think that what helps us stay confident is really creating a sort of sisterhood. And I think that's what Miss President does, is having girls who can form a network and lift each other up. I think that's super important, whether it be, your little friend group at school, having a bunch of girls that support you or are always there for you, or a program like Miss President, where it's almost like a created community for you, but you become friends with lots of girls from different schools, and you talk to people you never would have talked to, and you have 8th graders learning from 4th graders and vice versa. So I think that sort of bond and that network of having a force behind you that will lift you up and work with you, especially kind of a sisterhood or like a women's collective, is really important in building confidence and learning that you can grow and having people to grow with you. I think what gets in the way sometimes is like Amanda said, at age 9, girls' confidence sometimes goes from peak to plummet. And that's because they stop seeing themselves as leaders, and they stop believing they can do whatever they want, whether it be, an experience they have at school or something they see on TV, the media we consume, you know, like what we see in terms of representation in the fields we want to go into. And I think sometimes that can be really discouraging for young girls. I remember I did like a form of debate when I was younger, and I was really, at my first competition, I was the only girl in the room. And I remember just getting kind of passively shot down so many times and feeling like, as this little girl, I just didn't belong in the space I wanted to be in. And I think that those small experiences of feeling like the odd one out can sometimes lead to a loss of confidence and can get in the way of that, like budding leadership.
I would also add to that I think women and girls have a natural tendency towards perfectionism. And if they can't do it perfectly, then they must be failures, instead of seeing each possible no or rejection as a learning point. When you look at men and women and how they respond to job applications, right? When they see a job posting, men tick off 5 out of the 10 requirements and they say, I'm in, I'm applying. Right. Women take off 8 out of 10 and go, I'm not ready yet. I still need to get those other 2.
It's the hesitation.
Yeah.
It's the hesitation of trying that perfection. And because women have the inequality in jobs and so much of life, it second guess us. And that's what I think the organization and young ladies like you, Sofia, are doing, are giving, again, the word permission to not second guess, but maybe take that leap and just do it without any further having to evaluate it. We don't have to evaluate everything. We
For
can,
sure.
if we're shot down, fine. It's a learning experience. Get back up.
Completely. It's okay to fail sometimes. It's okay for things to not completely work out. It's really about how you bounce back from that. And I think
Fail
that's what we're-
forward. Fail forward.
Go forward. Amanda, how do you help young women overcome that moment? I could never do that. Just what we're talking about when they see leadership roles. And older women, young women, I mean, it's just what women are brought up to do.
What do you mean? How can
How can you overcome that moment if somebody wants, especially a young girl, is looking to do something and they say, I could never do that.
Yeah, and I think actually we're teaching a little bit of that, Sophia. Would you agree? When the girls get up and
Sure.
they take the microphone for the first time, and whether it's even just saying their name out loud in a microphone in a room full of girls, it's very empowering. And you have some girls who show up. I can think of a handful off the top of my head who show up in 4th grade petrified to A, stand up in the room, B, hold the mic, and C, say anything into the mic. It was like, and by the end of the program, they're grabbing the mic and they're speaking loudly, confidently, and they've given themselves permission to be in the room and to be a part of it. And I think that what we're doing is giving them a safe space to practice that. And even if it's silly in an exercise and it's a game, it's practice standing up and being the spotlight, even if you're not comfortable with it. It's saying, I don't want to run for X, Y, or Z, but maybe I will. Maybe, I would like to win, but I don't really want to run. All right, well, you're going to have to run to win. So let's get, let's figure out how to make you comfortable with that. And it's getting these girls to that point. They are on fire for the rest of their lives. I know that every girl who goes to this program is a lifetime voter. That is guaranteed. But they're also lifetime, I don't know whether I want to call them activists, but they're lifetime engagement in the civic process, no matter what they end up doing with their lives, will be bigger than if they weren't involved in the program.
Yes, for sure. And I think that, just to add on to Amanda, I think also we both talked about how representation is really important. And when you're young, you need to see yourself in those spaces to really feel like you belong. And I think by bringing in female guest speakers, like, for example, last year we had girls from, like female leaders from pollsters to city council members to assembly members. We had, the chief of staff to the mayor, like all these different women who have become leaders in different ways, and both inside of politics and using, their voices to make change outside of politics. By seeing that and being able to talk to like women who are doing that is really important. And we have, usually when guest speakers come in, we have some time for Q&A and a fireside chat. And the girls really want to learn from these speakers and talk to them and ask them questions. And I think that is so incredible to be able to have that face-to-face time with people who you look up to and people who you maybe dream of becoming someday.
Yeah,
Well,
the CEO of Pfizer, right? You had
Mhm. Gloria Steinem, our first meeting this year, it was so
wasn't it at
special.
her salon?
It
Yes.
was. It was in her living room, and we had such a wonderful conversation where we opened up the floor to questions and just a conversation with all the girls. And really, we had to cut off the questions because everyone kept raising their hands. And one of the things that Gloria said was, I'm not just looking for questions, I'm also looking for answers. And even though Gloria, 91, has done so many incredible things in her career, she wanted to learn from these fourth to eighth
See,
grade girls,
that
and she
that
wanted to hear about them.
that is the essence of a leader. That is the essence of what she has done because she's not she's not it's not adamant. Her her ears are open, her eyes are open. She wants to hear. It's funny because this whole series, the first launch, my first guest was Letty Cotton Podegren, who was one of the co-editors of Ms. Magazine. So it just keeps going, and generations young people wanting to talk to Gloria Steinem to learn and hear, and for her to want to listen is huge. That talks about everything that we're trying to do. It's communication, it's voices. And I want to go back to a word that was used before, the word confidence. So for both of you, what's one moment when either of you realize that confidence can be contagious?
It's a good question. Um, I can start. I
Go ahead.
think a moment that I realized confidence can be contagious was really with my mom. I think that she has, without a doubt, no matter how many guest speakers we bring in or incredible women we meet, I think that she will always be my biggest female role model. And she's really taught me to reach for high leadership positions and kind of just go for it and use my voice and put myself out there. And I think from watching her be so confident and supportive and such a powerful leader has really made me want to emulate that. And even though she, in her actual career life, does something completely different than what I want to do when I grow up, I really hope to emulate the sort of leader she is and feel that kind of contagion spread to other women that I work with, because I think that learning from her has been the most important thing in my growing up and learning how to become a leader, because, I'm only a senior. I'm still learning and I'm still trying and still honing my voice. So I think having that constant role model in my life has really shown me how contagious confidence can be.
I love that. And your mom is exceptional, like you're exceptional. She also gives you a lot of your own space to make your own decisions and your own leadership style.
Definitely.
It's a beautiful, for me to see as an outsider, it is a beautiful relationship that is not just mother-daughter, but is mentor and mentee. And I can totally understand how that confidence is built
And
Yes.
contagious.
and contagious.
But
For
that's what
me,
you
yeah,
do in the organization, Amanda, also.
yeah,
You I
I,
mean, you must
yeah,
see that.
I do. I'm thinking about one in particular who arrived and started super, super quiet. And I actually thought she's not coming back next month. Not a chance. She did not enjoy this. She was uncomfortable. This is not the place for her. I mean, it is the place for her, but I'm not sure she sees that it's the place for her. And she came back and she kept coming back. And I was like, yes. And then by the end of the program, she actually ran her own campaign and got up in front of 300 people and spoke super clearly after having months of not really wanting to stand up at all. It was like, I literally cried. I just was like, how, how is this possible? And then she literally has gone on to inspire confidence because everybody saw this happen. Many of the other girls the next year came back and right off the bat are like, yes, I'm going to run for something. Yes, I'm going to run for something. I mean, she was so courageous. It's great.
Contagious.
And contagious. Courageous, contagious, and confident.
There you go, the 3 C's. Let's talk about women supporting women. Have you ever seen a time when women didn't support one another, and what can we do differently moving forward?
Ooh, Sophia, you might see this in your school.
I totally, I really do. And I think that, well, your question was the time where you've seen women not support women.
Mhm.
So I think one of the biggest examples of that is I serve on my school's student government. I'm the chair of my school's student government called the Community Council. And it's been one of my favorite activities throughout high school. It really allows me and my peers to bridge a gap between the faculty and the students, and it allows us to represent our grade. And it's kind of a form of government. We try to make policies that make the school better. And for in my freshman year, I think probably around 40 people ran, and most of them were girls. And we had 6 spots. 4 spots were filled by boys, 2 spots were me and another girl. Then the next year, the other girl got voted out of the student government, and we saw kind of half and half girls and boys run because, of course, like after not getting elected, most of the boys that had ran the year before were persistent and wanted to run again. And a lot of the girls who ran the year before didn't want to try again because they felt knocked down. And I know that from talking to a bunch of girls and being like, hey, you all should run. So the next year, my sophomore year, it was 5 boys and me. Then the year after that, 5 boys and me, and barely any girls ran. And then for senior year, we actually have 2 extra spots. So it's 8 slots for the representatives. And we saw last year that probably around 3 or 4 girls ran and 10 to 15 boys ran. And the 2 spots were filled by 2 additional boys. So now in my student government, it's me and 7 other boys, and which is really not an accurate representation of our grade at all. It makes it super hard to, I think it makes it really hard for girls to feel seen even in their own school level. And I think that was really, really sad for me, is to see not only the fact that girls weren't getting elected, but the fact that they were discouraged from running again when a lot of the boys were not. And I think that kind of speaks to the perfectionism and the loss of confidence, where if you get shot down once, it feels like the end of the world, when really, a no is opening the door to other yeses, and it should be a reason to keep going. But for that, what I've seen in my school is that it was not. And now I'm the only girl, but I have an awesome team around me, which is great. Like, they're all amazing representatives, but it is definitely sad to see myself as the only girl in that position. And I wish there was a more, equal distribution of boys and girls on the student government.
Well,
For the grades.
to that, I just want to ask one more question. Did you not see any of the young girls trying to support some of these young girls who had wanted to run, to push them to do it, or were they just all kind of scared and standing back?
I mean, from personal conversations, I had a lot of conversations with girls that I thought would be perfect to run. And the, overwhelming response was like, not really. I already ran. Like, it's not going to happen. And I think that was just the kind of sentiment. It wasn't like this crushing, like, oh my gosh, like, I'm never going to win. It wasn't like that. It was just more of a, like, it didn't happen, so it's not going to happen. And I'm just not going to try. And I feel like that was definitely sad to see, but it's what we see in elections too. Like, about girls running and then not running again, or, not getting the overwhelming vote. And I think that's like this kind of school level of government is a microcosm for a larger political landscape where we see that girls aren't getting elected and aren't necessarily always supporting like female candidates.
Amanda, jump right in.
Well, I was going to ask you, did you see the grades below you as you moved up? Did they start electing more females, or is that representational of each of the?
Grades, yes. So the grade below me is 4 boys and 2 girls. Um, and so that was like, getting a little better. But the 2 grades actually below the freshmen and the sophomores, they have 3 girls and 3 boys, which is amazing. So it's definitely more equal, and I hope that lasts. So my grade may just be an anomaly, but it definitely was the case in my grade. And usually it's a girl and a boy leader, so which is the case right now, and which I think is really nice. But next year, like who knows what it's going to be in the years to come. So I hope that also holds.
I wouldn't have an issue if it was all females. If your senior year you had like 8 females and no men, no
Yeah,
guys,
I can't even imagine that
right?
happening. Yeah.
Or suddenly there'd be an administrative thing that says, no, we need to have equal representation, and you have
I've
separate
talked to
elections for the
my
boys and the girls.
yeah, I've talked to my um like the faculty advisor
Yeah.
who's the dean of students, and he's amazing, and we've had conversations where I'm like, this shouldn't be happening, but really it's like, we're trying to put in measures where it empowers girls to vote, but at the end of the day, like it is a free and fair election, it's what the
Yeah.
grade votes for. So
Yeah.
I think that there's been a lot of conversation that really can't be changed, which
Yeah.
I agree with. I think, if you get elected, you get elected, but it's it's sad in the way the voting process works, I guess, and how people want to vote.
I'll ask you this, Amanda. What role does community play in keeping that support alive across ages and experiences?
I feel like community is everything, because we're introducing these girls both. They're coming in with their, obviously their parents are signing them up. They don't sign themselves up. So the parents are already bought into this. So we've got the participants, the mentees, the mentors, the guest speakers that we bring in. We bring them in from the community. And so the girls are seeing who is running their school boards, who is running, who makes decisions in their town or their city, and how are they made. And they also learn about who they were before they decided to run for something, right? And I think girls realizing that, wait a second, you don't have to decide in 4th grade you want to be president. Live your life. And at some point you may decide you want to jump in, put your hat in the ring and run for something. But it's your community that they're learning how it operates. And I love, after we have this past Friday we had at our Ridgefield session, our state senator and our state rep come and speak. We're lucky. We have 4 legislators representing us, and they're all women. I'm not going to say that's because I'm his president, but, we've got all women legislators. And after the session, the number of girls who, A, wanted their signatures, which is adorable, and B, wanted to know how to contact them if they had a question.
Oh,
So already they're already thinking, oh, this is how you do it. Like, people, you build your community, you build your circle of, collaboration. And women do that naturally. Like, we are natural collaborators. I think girls also are natural collaborators. They want to be part of a team. They want to do things together. So I think community, what we're trying to do is help girls see that community, you've got one. You already have one. Use it, access it, be a part of it, be a member, get engaged.
And I think allyship is so important too. Like, even though we have such a strong female community, it's also, what we're fighting for is equal representation, and to have, girls reach for whatever position they want to reach for and be whoever they want to be. And I think that allyship with also male leaders is super important too. And having that, like support between each other. And I think that is a really important way in how we make progress, is creating that bigger community as well, which I think is really nice.
Before we wrap up, I always take a moment to reflect, to pause and think about the conversation, what this conversation says about where we are now as women. Amanda, what gives you hope when you look at the next generation of girls coming up through Ms. President US?
I am so filled with hope every time I see one of these gals out in the community doing something, but also in the session learning and eating up the knowledge. Like they are going to be, they're already leaders in their community. Sofia, you've been a leader since you were 8 years old, right? Like these girls are already coming in equipped more than previous generations, for sure. They're already more aware. They may not know the civics angle because I know in certain school districts that part has not necessarily been focused on. So that's kind of, we're coming in to fill that gap, but they're already coming in hungry. So I am hopeful that hunger turns into like this knowledge that they have the ability to make an impact every step of the way, no matter how old they are. Their voice matters. They don't have to wait till they can vote. They don't have to wait till they're, president of Pepsi. Their voice matters now.
Sofia, you've built something remarkable with the New York City chapter. What's one thing you've learned about leadership from both generations that's surprised you?
Ooh, that's a good one. I think for, I guess, a younger generation, for middle school girls, I think that, what surprised me is a lot of girls are genuinely confused about why there aren't enough women in politics. And I think we had at our first meeting this year at Gloria Steinem's house, one of the girls genuinely asked Gloria, why do men run politics when my mom runs our house? And like the whole room erupted in just this laughter, and everyone was like, yeah, that's the same in my house. And, I thought it was a really good question that I think some girls are genuinely, they don't understand like what has led us to this point. And I think I've learned that sort of innocence is so important in leadership, and having that kind of those questions, being able to ask those questions, and, knowing that there is a place for them, and being confused why sometimes they're told there's not a place for them. And I think just the curiosity from the younger girls has been so amazing and such an important part of my role as chapter leader. And what I've aimed to do in creating curriculum is just allowing them to have space to ask questions and to, get those hard-hitting questions out. And I think from guest speakers is really just how to be flexible and how to pivot and be able to kind of roll with the punches and bounce back. We see in so many female leaders, we ask a lot of the time is like, what's a setback you faced in your career, and does it relate to, gender in politics, and have you ever had any kind of discrimination on the basis of sex? And always there's a story that goes along with that. But I think the most important part of those stories is how those leaders have bounced back and taken those failures and kind of moved around them, which is so important for younger girls to hear, that one setback is not the end. It really is the beginning. So those are the biggest lessons I've learned: curiosity and how to bounce back.
What I love about both of your answers is how clearly they show the ripple effect of women lifting each other up, from young generations through baby boomers and beyond. Leadership isn't something that's handed down. It's something that's modeled, shared, and reimagined with every new generation. I think that is huge. What Amanda and Sofia, what you gals have built through Miss President US reminds us that when girls see women leading with confidence and empathy, they begin to imagine themselves in these roles. And when women listen to younger voices, we remember what first inspired us to speak in the first place. That connection, the current between generations, it's what keeps this movement alive. I'm going to ask you, where can people find out more information about your organization? Because I think it's just important for people to know.
Well, Sophia, I mean, each of our chapters has its own Instagram, which is going to be MS President US, and then whatever chapter it is, Ridgefield or New York City, and then our website is mspresidentus.org. We're a nonprofit. We're nonpartisan. And Facebook. I mean, you can find us on all our socials, and there we are. And they can always reach out to any of us.
Always,
I'll chat with anybody. Sophia, I know you do too.
Always, of course. Yeah. So we love to chat with prospective new members of Miss President and, answer any questions anyone might have. But the best places to go are definitely the website, the Instagram, and the Facebook.
Well, ladies, thank you so much for joining me today. That's it for this episode of The Woman's Current Is the Tide Turning. My thanks to Amanda Cordano and Sofia Sahai for reminding us what's possible when women lead with purpose and when girls see that leadership reflected back at them. My co-host, Molly Watzek, couldn't be with us for this conversation, but as always, The Woman's Current continues to bring voices across generations. And if today's conversation sparked something in you, share it with a friend. Follow the show and join me and Molly each week as we explore women are supporting one another and where we go from here. Follow us on Instagram at The Woman's Current. Subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and catch full episodes on YouTube. I'm Sylvia Beckerman. Thanks for listening to The Woman's Current.
This has been a Life of Prey production.